Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjanishalaakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamin Niti Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayet. In this session, we'll be discussing from the first verse of the 10th chapter of the first canto. This is a new chapter. The chapter is entitled Departure of Lord Krishna for Dwaraka. The first verse, Shaunaka Uvacha Hatva Swariktha Spridha Atatayino Yudhishtiro Dharma Bhritam Varishtaha Sahanujai Pratyavaruddha Bhojanaha Katham pravrittaha kim akarashit tataha. The meaning of this first verse is as follows. Shaunaka Muni asked, after killing his enemies who desired to usurp his rightful inheritance, how did the greatest of all religious men, Maharaj Yudhishthira, assisted by his brothers, rule his subjects? Surely he could not freely enjoy his kingdom with unrestricted consciousness. The previous chapter described that Yudhishthira Maharaj executed the royal power after assuming the throne of Hastinapura, becoming the emperor of the world. He ruled strictly according to the codes and religious principles given in the Dharma Shastra, approved by his uncle Dhritarashtra and confirmed by Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So now the question is being raised by Shaunaka Rishi. How did he rule his subjects, assisted by his brothers? So in the Mahabharata, there is an elaborate description, and briefly it is described in this chapter, how Yudhishthira was the ideal king, primarily because Yudhishthira was a pure devotee of the Supreme Lord. The Vedic conception is that the king is the representative of the Supreme Lord. Ultimately, it is the Supreme Lord who is the maintainer of everyone in the material world and the spiritual world. So when Krishna is the maintainer, nobody should have any scarcity because Krishna is unlimitedly opulent and he provides for everyone. But in human society, there is scarcity sometimes only because of mismanagement, misuse, abuse. These are the reasons why there is apparently some scarcity. Otherwise, by the arrangement of the Supreme Lord, there is plenty. Just like you consider a small seed of any particular fruit. Now you sow that seed, you get a huge tree, and that tree keeps on giving fruits for several decades. I know of a mango tree near our temple in Mysore, where the gentleman whose house that tree is presently standing, he says it gives 20,000 mangoes in the season. And that tree, one mango tree, was planted by his great-grandfather, as he has heard from his parents and grandparents. So this is Krishna's creation. A jackfruit tree. The jackfruit itself is so big. One jackfruit, even one family cannot eat. And a jackfruit tree gives so many fruits in the season. So we have known people who have jackfruit tree who are not commercially minded. They give away jackfruits to temples, to neighbors, to relatives, and still they are not able to exhaust. How much can a person eat? We have limited capacity to eat. So therefore, Krishna provides in plenty. Krishna provides in plenty. Another example I can give, practical example. The Food Corporation of India is meant to store food grains for preventing any famine or any calamity, that there will be no food grains, then the stored food grains will be released by the government. Now the godowns of the Food Corporation of India are over flooded with grains. So much so that there was a report in the newspaper, the wagons, the railway wagons which bring the food grains after the harvest, after the government procures from the farmers, the wagons bring to the godowns of the Food Corporation of India, and because the godowns are full, the wagons are not emptied, and the wagons are lying in the yard, railway yard, and the grains are getting spoiled because there's no place to store them. So if this is the quantity of food grains that is there in stock, and everywhere the shops are selling grains, they have plenty of grains. There are plenty of grains. So there is no scarcity because Krishna is providing everybody. But then, due to sinful activities, due to mismanagement, due to abuse, misuse of the natural resources, sometimes there is scarcity. So Yudhishthira Maharaj, he was perfectly ruling strictly according to religious principles. Now here, one word is used, Dharma Bhritam Varishtaha. He is one of those who strictly follow religious principles. He is the greatest among them, Yudhishthira Maharaj. And when he was ruling, then there is no question of any scarcity, any difficulty, any problem for the people. So Srila Prabhupada says in the purport, Maharaj Yudhishthira was the greatest of all men of religion. Thus he was not at all inclined to fight with his cousins for the sake of enjoying the kingdom. This is a very important point. Yudhishthira never wanted to fight with his cousins for the sake of, with Duryodhana and party, for the sake of enjoying the kingdom. Then why did he fight at all in the battle of Kurukshetra? He fought for the right cause because the kingdom of Hastinapura was his rightful inheritance. And his cousins wanted to usurp it for themselves. See the clear contrast between Yudhishthira and Duryodhana. Yudhishthira is one who strictly follows all the religious principles. Duryodhana is demoniac-minded, demoniac nature. So in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna clearly says the difference between divine nature and demoniac nature. He says, Krishna says, divine nature people, they follow the injunctions of the scriptures and the spiritual authorities. This is divine nature. And those of demoniac or asuric nature, they do not follow the regulative principles as laid down in the scriptures, but they act according to their own whimsical mind. This is the clear distinction between divine nature and demoniac nature. So Duryodhana was demoniac natured and Yudhishthira was divine natured. So because Yudhishthira was divine natured, he strictly followed all the regulations of the scriptures. So therefore there was no scarcity at all. It will be described in the later verses. How the citizens under the rule of Yudhishthira Maharaj enjoyed everything in plenty. So the fight on the battlefield of Kurukshetra between the Pandavas and Kauravas was justified on part of Yudhishthira, because Yudhishthira fought for the sake of justice, and Yudhishthira fought for the right cause under the guidance of Lord Krishna. He fought under the guidance of Lord Krishna. In fact, Yudhishthira Maharaj tried to negotiate for peace, but Duryodhana would not give even 5 villages for the 5 brothers, Pandava brothers, which was their rightful claim. The whole kingdom was their rightful claim. But when the Pandavas reduced their request to 5 villages to avoid the war, the battle, but Duryodhana would not give. So obstinacy of Duryodhana. Duryodhana was overconfident. Oh, we are going to win the battle. We are very powerful. He was making all sorts of material calculations. Foolish Duryodhana never understood Krishna is on the side of the Pandavas because Pandavas are devotees. And Duryodhana being demoniac natured, he will never understand what is Krishna's plan. And everything goes according to Krishna's plan. Nothing goes according to anybody else's wishes or plans. No. Everything goes on according to the plan of Krishna. So it is the plan of Krishna that the demoniac natured Duryodhana and his party should be completely vanquished. And the thoroughly righteous, religious, principled Yudhishthira should be enthroned as the emperor of the world. This was Krishna's plan and this was to be executed. So it was all arranged by Krishna. Therefore, the Pandavas were guaranteed victory actually, even before the battle started. As I mentioned earlier also, the last verse of the Bhagavad Gita in the 18th chapter says, Yatra Yogeshwara Krishno Yatra Partho Dhanurdharaha Tatra Shri Vijayo Bhutir Dhruvanitir Matirmama. Even before the battle begins, Sanjaya predicts that victory belongs to the Pandavas because Krishna and Arjuna are on the side of the Pandavas. So therefore here it's explained, Yudhishthira Maharaj, he won the battle, but he could not enjoy the results of victory. He could not enjoy the results of victory with unrestricted consciousness. That's what is mentioned here. Shaunaka Rishi is telling, surely he could not enjoy freely his kingdom with unrestricted consciousness. He was always conscious of his responsibility and duty. As was explained in the previous chapter, the duty of the king is to care for the citizens for their spiritual upliftment. So, how did he rule? Shaunaka Rishi wanted to know, how did he rule? He wanted to hear the glories of the rule of King Yudhishthira. And that will be explained in the next few verses. I'll stop here. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.